Welcome back to another edition of Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday morning. I'm Dr. Kevin. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host Brandon. Come up, Brandon. How are you this morning?
I'm good. I mean, look, the beautiful weather.
It's
going to be like this for a while.
I am loving it. As a deer hunting fanatic,
yeah.
That first morning you wake up and you walk outside and you get that kind of cool air, It just makes you ready, man. I've been putting up stands, and I'm so ready for deer season. I eat venison probably 3 days a week. It's just nature's perfect organic protein, so I'm excited, man. I'm loving the weather.
Well, I got to say, when it hit on Thursday morning and I got outside, I'm like, okay, this is amazing, but I can feel a little bit of adjustment I got to make. I've been so used to just boiling hot, being slapped in the face with humidity coming out in the morning, and now coming out to this breezy stuff, it is amazing.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for joining us. Those of you that have never heard the show before, welcome to the show, and for those regular listeners, thank you for joining us again. This is the show with a purpose. And the purpose of this show is not just to be something interesting to listen to on Saturday morning, but to actually change your health, to change the health of the good people of Acadiana. This show is completely dedicated to drug-free solutions for some of today's most complicated health problems. I'm going on my 20th year in private practice, and in that time, I've helped thousands and thousands of patients solve their worst health problems using totally natural solutions. And I've been on a 20-year quest now to permanently solve people's problems once and for all, instead of just patching things up all the time, just sort of covering things up and ignoring them. And I've got a very special show for you today. We haven't done a show like this yet since we started doing Get Well Acadiana. This show is going to be dedicated to children's issues. And it's Children's Health Month at Bryant Wellness. So in today's show, we're going to talk about the health of the children and teens out there in Acadiana. So if you have kids, you're going to want to stay tuned into the show. Now, you may have grandkids, and if you do, I want you to call or text the parents and tell them to tune in, especially if the kids are having any kind of health problems whatsoever. You're going to want to hear this show. And the first thing that we got to get out of the way before we get started, the one thing that we have to come to the realization on is that our kids in America have the worst health in decades. Our kids have more health problems now than even since the Great Depression times. And this is such a passion of mine. At times, my practice has been up to 20% pediatrics, and most people don't realize that. They think of what we do as more of an adult and an older kind of a practice. I've been working with kids of all ages with all types of health problems for 20 years now, and I enjoy it so much. I love working with kids to try to improve their health, because I know we're not just helping them now, but we're putting their entire life on a different pathway, helping them with everything from concentration and learning issues, asthma and weight problems. Kids that have weight problems have less self-esteem, they're less successful in life, and they develop lifelong health problems. And the thing that I see a lot of times is sometimes parents, they don't want to admit that their kids' health is not very good. Many times as parents, we want to always see our kids in a positive light whenever possible, or, always sort of think that things are going to be okay. But the thing that you have to realize is that our kids' health really is in serious shape. Parents need to stop for a minute and take a look at this. So many kids out there are suffering with health problems to the point to where it's almost just become normal. The average lifespan numbers may actually go down for the first time ever in history, meaning kids born today is the first generation ever that may not outlive their grandparents. If you look at the statistics of health problems in kids, ear infections have risen 250%. Asthma has increased over 300% in the last 20 years, and it's now the most frequent cause of school absenteeism in children under 17. Obesity. Guys, almost 1/3 of our children are now obese. Children being obese. Another 1/3 are overweight. So 2/3 of our children have weight problems. Parents, listen, it's not okay to have overweight children. These children are set up for a lifetime of chronic disease and early death. Childhood weight problems have gone up 300% in the last 30 years. We've got children already developing things like high cholesterol and diabetes, even as children. You know, diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes because years ago, only adults got diabetes. So many children are developing diabetes now that they had to change the name from adult onset diabetes to type 2 diabetes. And guys, this makes me so sad and frustrated and a little bit angry, to be honest with you. You know, autism has gone from 1 in several 100,000 to now it's probably going to be like 1 in 45 boys when the new numbers come out. Why we're not throwing an absolute fit about this, I don't understand. You know, I talk to parents with autistic children all the time that come in for our autism program, and the parents just want to see some improvement, and not enough is being done to figure out what is going on. And I think that I've got a pretty good handle on it, but these are things that need to be addressed. And then when you add up all these behavioral and attention problems, in 1975, there was something like 175,000 cases of ADD had ever been reported. Today, it's around 25 million kids a year are being diagnosed with attention and concentration problems. The National Association of Teachers just released the numbers, and 35% of the children in the U.S. have been labeled either disabled with learning, physical, emotional, or mental disorders. This is the highest level ever recorded in the history of our country at any time. 29 million prescriptions for ADD were written last year. So whenever you guys hear me say that the health of our children are in trouble and somebody needs to be talking about this and something needs to be done, now you see why. Preschoolers given this ADD medicine grew a ½ inch less and gained 2 pounds less per year being on these medications. The University of Buffalo study just found permanent changes in the brain cell structure and function of kids that are on these medications. They've shown that it leads to hostility, aggression, anxiety, depression, paranoia, and even suicide increases later on in life. And although these ADD drugs may allow them to concentrate temporarily, almost all research shows no long-term scholastic benefit and can actually have long-term detrimental effects. Of course, they're going to concentrate temporarily. This is an amphetamine-based class 2 narcotic, just like methamphetamine. In fact, it's based off of methamphetamine. If you look at the chemical structure, if you look at the actual chemical name of these medications, so the chemical name of Ritalin is methylphenidate. The chemical name of Adderall is dextroamphetamine. They are molecularly almost identical to methamphetamine. These are major brain-altering class 2 stimulant narcotic drugs. So, of course, they're going to concentrate a little bit more on these drugs. I mean, if I told you, if I could give your son some meth and they'll concentrate more in school, would you do that? I don't think that you would, but that's basically what's going on. And the truth is, you know, Brandon, this is so funny. The pharmaceutical industry literally wants everyone in the world on something, even your pets. I was reading an article last year. Eli Lilly won approval for a beef-flavored Prozac pill called Reconcile for the dogs.
Oh, man.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Puppy Prozac. It's gotten so out of control. They literally want everyone, and I guess our pets too now, on something. And, you know, guys, listen, I've been working with kids and teens now for the last 20 years with all of these conditions. And the number one thing that I want parents to know out there is there are answers for these things. They can be improved. For some reason, the public really doesn't seem to think about the brain as being able to be made healthier, but it absolutely can. So just understand that your brain is an organ just like your heart is, and there's lots of things that can be done to make your brain healthier, just like you can make the rest of your body healthier. So if you went to your cardiologist, you went for a heart checkup, and he said, I want you to cut your salt and eat better and go for walks so that your heart will be healthier because you're developing heart disease. That would make perfect sense to people. But people don't think of the brain in the same way. Your brain is made of cells and tissues, and it can be made healthier if you know what you're doing. Brain health is a major issue affecting our kids, and solutions do exist to get it working better, just like your heart would. People think of the brain as, well, my child has this thing called ADD or depression, and that's just kind of the way it is. That is not true. It is absolutely not true. The brain can change and improve and get healthier just like everything else. So there are natural steps you can take to make your brain work better, just like you can eat better and go for walks to make your heart healthier. There are things we can do to change it. So this is important. We don't have a child that is depressed. We have a brain that is depressed. And we don't have a child that can't concentrate. We have a brain that can't concentrate. And when you work on the brain will get better and healthier, and it will start to improve. I'm very concerned about the children of America's health, and it's just in terrible shape, guys. And I'm determined to change that. The kids of Acadiana need our attention. Their health is in real trouble, and no one is talking about it. We have a program called 5 Steps to a Healthier Child that can absolutely solve these problems and turn your child's health around once and for all. It's not normal to have all of our children to have these health problems. ADD, depression, anxiety, ear infections, asthmas, learning disorders. I mean, it never ends. It's gotten so common that it doesn't even register us that it's gotten so bad. But if you were to take someone from the 50s, say from the 1950s, and you teleported them to today, and you say you had them in front of a classroom of kids, and you started having each one of those kids describe what health problems they're suffering with, that person would be absolutely amazed. Kids didn't have all of this back years ago, decades ago. Kids' health really needs to be addressed. And this is something that we can do in a very natural, drug-free way. But the thing is, we're all too busy. We're all on the go. We need to all stop for a second and think about this. Where are all of these problems coming from? And we're going to tell you that on the show today. We're going to get into where these things are coming from and what we can do about them in order to try to help the health of our kids right here in Acadiana. So thanks for listening. This is Get Well Acadiana. This is Dr. Kevin, and we're going to get into this a little bit more after the break. We're going to talk about some common childhood problems and what we can do about it using all natural solutions. Now listen, if you know parents with kids that have problems, call them during this break. Call them and text them and tell them to tune in right here on KPEL. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin, and it's Children's Health Month at Bryant Wellness all this month. And before break, we were discussing that the shape that our kids are in Acadiana, and guys, it's not very good news. Before the break, we were talking about now 2/3 of our children have weight problems, and the truth is it might actually even be a little higher than that. You know, as parents, sometimes we want to see our kids in the best light possible. Like we want to see them as okay. Sometimes as parents, we don't want to admit that something is wrong with them or something needs to be done to try to address an issue. But if your children are too heavy, something needs to be done about it, and not later. It needs to be done now. Sometimes parents are afraid to talk to their kids about weight because they don't want them to feel bad or to be embarrassed. The truth is, though, they probably already feel bad. Other kids can be ruthless whenever it comes to weight problems, and the kids may already be getting ridiculed. And this is just terrible for their emotional state and their relationships and their self-esteem, even for their future success in life. So parents need to take this seriously. My program works with young people, and I sit down with them in a way that is caring, open, non-embarrassing, and most of all, it's super effective to work on this weight problem. And you know, parents, sometimes it comes better from someone other than mom and dad. Your kids already know they're too heavy. They just want someone to help them. And most kids are actually willing to do whatever they can to not be overweight, but just someone needs to sit down with them and offer them some honest help. And I've done my Healthy Weight, Healthy Kids program for years now, and it's a plan they can follow on their own, and the success rates are amazing. And you don't want your kids to already be developing diabetes and heart disease early in life in their 20s and 30s. And I know it's tough, especially to talk to teens. I talk to parents every week, and a lot of times they don't want to upset their teens by bringing up their weight, but believe me, I understand that. But if we don't address this now, it could go on and really affect them forever. And I understand we don't want to hurt feelings and make them feel bad about themselves. And I don't want to do that especially. But we can tactfully talk to young people in a very general way about their weight. And the truth is, most kids already know they have weight problems, especially teens, and they want to be better. They just are sort of stuck. They just need somebody to help coach them through it. With teens, honestly, I usually let them bring it up. So as I'm talking to them, I'll say, listen, if there was one thing that you would want to change about your health or your body, what would that be? And they almost always say, I don't want to be heavy anymore. And then we're off and running. It's something they've actually asked for. Most of them are so grateful someone is there to help them change their entire future. So we're very used to working with young people around this subject. And when someone other than mom and dad sits down with them and offers to help them, young people are usually very receptive and very, very grateful. Now, the first thing we need to address is why. There are several reasons that our kids are overweight. And in our program, we have to address every reason in order to be successful. So there are several aspects of weight loss that we look at to help the kids and teens, and one of them is sugar addiction. The average American teenager now eats 180 pounds of sugar per year. Just to make that a little more real to you, the average American child eats 32 teaspoons of sugar per day. Now think about this. So imagine waking your child up in the morning and they come in the kitchen and you take a Ziploc bag and open it and you go over to the sugar bowl and you put 32, counting them out, teaspoons of sugar in a Ziploc bag and hand that to your kid and say, here's your sugar for the day. Would you ever do that? It's already happening. 32 teaspoons a day, day after day after day. So many times parents will say, well, my child won't eat that. That's not true. When you present it in the correct way and they understand that their food choices are affecting their weight, and you get them to make the weight more of a priority than the temporary pleasure, they actually come around. It doesn't seem like they would, but I've seen this over and over and over. Kids actually want to be healthier if they just understand. They will make better choices. And they don't have to eat like a rabbit on my plan. I have a whole drawer full of kid-friendly recipes. The vast majority of the kids that I've worked with in the last 20 years will make better choices if they understand the consequences, and you have to give them things that they actually enjoy to eat. They don't have to never eat sugar again. They just can't eat 32 teaspoons a day. And I have so many great recipes to share with them. I have with my son, when he was 3, I used to make these little breakfast cookies that were 4 ingredients: oatmeal, bananas, cinnamon, and butter. They're super healthy. He loved them. And I promise you, if you go in there and you wake your kid up and go, Hey, how about cookies for breakfast? You're going to be like the greatest parent in the world. And you can smile the whole time because they're eating a superfood. They're eating things that are super healthy for them. It's great for brain health. It helps balance their insulin and keep them full longer. You know, our kids are hungry all the time because they're not getting any nutrients. They're eating dead food all the time, and their body's screaming out for some nutrition. That's why they're always hungry, because they're never eating anything good that's going to feed their body what it needs. So the neat thing about these breakfast cookies is you make them twice a week. It takes about 10 minutes, and they have great breakfast before school. I also have a breakfast pizza recipe made from all superfoods. They'll love it. So my point here is that I have all kinds of ideas in order to try to help your kids eat better, and they're good for their health, and they're going to enjoy them at the same time. But the one thing I can tell you for sure, ignoring their weight problems is not going to help them. In fact, it's a tragedy, because I already see in my practice adults in their 20s and 30s that have developed chronic disease because no one addressed their problems when they were teenagers. I'm trying to do something now so that doesn't happen to them as well. And on these 5 steps to a healthier child, one of those 5 steps, and we're going to try to get through them all today, but one of those 5 steps to a healthier child on our program has to deal with weight problems, nutrition, diet, and food. And we're going to cover almost all of the other ones on the show today. But if you have a little one that's suffering with anything from asthma to ADD, behavioral problems, weight problems, any kind of body complaints, if you have a little one that's suffering with any of these health problems, I want to encourage you to bring them in this month during our 5 Steps to a Healthier Child month. All this month, we're doing free brain and body screening for our Acadiana kids so we can turn these health problems around now using all natural solutions. So we're donating our time to try to help the kids of Acadiana all month of September. If you want to bring your child or teen in for our Healthy Kids brain and body screening, it's free all this month. All you have to do is call my office at 837-7174 and register your child or teen, and we will sit down and do a complete brain and body screening on them to see if we can figure out some solutions. That's 837-7174, or you can simply text CHILD to 77453, and it'll pop right up on our computer. That's CHILD to 77453, or you can call 837-7174. And this is good for whatever health problem. It doesn't matter, from asthma to weight problems to ADD to scoliosis or ear infections, babies with colic. It doesn't matter. If your child is having something that's not okay, this is the time that we can take a look at it. So let's see if we can get them some help at 837-7174, or text CHILD to 77453. It's Kids Health Month at Bryant Wellness. We have lots more on the other side of this break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, before the break, we were discussing, and I mentioned asthma, and I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on asthma before we move on. For those of you that are just tuning in, it's Children's Health Month at Bryant Wellness, and we're doing free children's evaluations all month long to try to help the health of our Acadiana kids improve. And before the break, I mentioned asthma a few times. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because it's now the most frequent cause of school absenteeism in children under 17 years old. Asthma cases have increased 300% in the last 20 years. And there are several reasons why I think this is happening, and I address each reason individually. But the bottom line with asthma is that asthma is a chronic inflammatory reaction in the body. When you boil it down to it, it's to its finest point, it's an inflammatory reaction. And guys, I talk almost every week about chronic inflammation in the body and how my program targets and reduces chronic inflammation. And since asthma is a chronic inflammatory condition, childhood asthma responds beautifully to all of these type of anti-inflammatory techniques that I talk about almost every week on the show. We change it up just a little bit for kids. and teens, and we address it just a little different way in asthma, but it's basically the same thing. It's because the child's body is in inflammation, and where the inflammation is kind of all the same thing. But just because it's happening in a child doesn't mean it's not still the same thing. The body has chronic inflammation, and we can help that. So kids respond beautifully to these anti-inflammatory protocols. I can tell you this, these cortisone-based drugs have tons of side effects on the back end, and if we can find a better way to do it, and it's so much healthier for their growing bodies, then that's something we should do. And listen, guys, these kids with asthma, they feel like they can't breathe. It's horrible for these kids. If you want to know how they feel, try this. Take a drinking straw and put it in your mouth and hold your nose and go around and do some activities and try breathing through just the straw. That's what these kids feel like. It's scary. Research consistently shows that kids respond beautifully to these natural-based treatments like ours, and these kids do really well with these anti-inflammatory type protocols. Now, here's the other thing. Even if you do the meds to get rid of the asthma, if these kids' body stays in this systemic inflammation, if they keep this systemic inflammation going on in their bodies, because I guarantee you, if they're inflamed enough to get asthma, they have inflammation everywhere in their body. And if we don't do something to reduce that, you could be setting them up for many other inflammatory diseases later in life, like heart disease and cancer, and you name it, and everything else. So, all of these chronic type diseases start with inflammation, and that's pretty much agreed on throughout every healthcare profession. If there's one thing that we can agree on all health professions, it's that inflammation is the precursor to almost all chronic diseases. Now, my question is, well, what's causing the inflammation? And that's where our treatment targets. So if they're already inflamed as a kid, you have to get that inflammation out for their future life. And the other thing that we want to ask ourselves is, what is inflaming them? Where is that? That's where the secret actually lies. And we can get that out, and that will change their whole life as well. Now, one of the things that could be causing them to have inflammation is unrecognized food intolerances. Now, just to take you a few minutes into this is a huge source of health problems in kids, from everything from behavioral problems to weight problems to asthma and inflammatory conditions. And these are unrecognized food intolerances. So let me just spend a few minutes and talk to you about what that means and what that is. So we all know the story of the kid that's allergic to peanuts, and when they eat them, their throat closes and they can't breathe. And they have this major health reaction. But there's another type of food intolerance that doesn't affect the throat type tissues or the inflammatory tissues, but it actually affects the other part of the body, like the nerves and the immune system. And so it doesn't cause their throat to close, but it affects their nerve tissue. It affects their brain and nervous system. So if they eat food they're intolerant to, it can later on affect their concentration, attention, and behavior. And I see this all the time in practice, and it can also cause inflammation in their body. I tell you what I'm going to do. I have some videos on this before and afters where they took children that they knew were intolerant to a certain food, and they videoed them before, and then they gave them their intolerant food, and then they videoed them after so that you could see the post-reaction. I'm going to post some of those videos on our Facebook page. If you have kids, you need to go watch this. Our Facebook page is Bryant Wellness Institutes, and I'm going to post these videos, and I want you guys to go watch the reaction of these kids. So you can go check this out. These kids are perfectly calm and sweet, and they're coloring and smiling and laughing. And when they get exposed to their particular food intolerance, they get anxious and aggressive and start misbehaving, and they're uncontrollable, and they can't concentrate. One of them is orange juice. The other one, I think it's corn, and the other one I think they do is wheat. The type of food is different for every child, and that's what makes this so hard to figure out. But if your child eats a food they're intolerant to every morning, they will literally begin their day with a bad food reaction before school and have no idea that that's what's causing it. that's causing them to act a certain way. Ladies and gentlemen, I see this all the time. I see this almost every day in my practice. Kids that have unrecognized food intolerances, and that's affecting their behavior, and they've never made that connection. If they're intolerant to corn, and corn irritates their nervous system, and they eat cornflakes every morning, they're going to start their day, they're going to start their school day with this inflammatory reaction in their nervous system. Now, how do we ever know that? It's a really hard thing to figure out because it can actually be a few days before the reaction occurs. So they may eat something different on Monday and have a really bad day on Wednesday, and you just can't sort of figure out this reaction. The only way to tell what your particular child is intolerant to is through testing. We do food intolerance testing for 96 different food items, and we can discover any foods that your child may be intolerant to that's affecting their concentration, behavior, attention, or health, or inflammation, whatever it is. Guys, this is a real problem. I see it all the time. I see it all the time in kids that I work with ADD and depression and autism, even things like asthmas and allergies and all sorts of different disorders. So this is something that has to be looked at as our second part of our 5 Steps to a Healthier Kid program, because you can do everything else right, and if they're eating something their body is intolerant to and we miss that, you won't get the result you're looking for. You know, children's bodies are very sensitive to things, even much more than they used to be. Things that are not supposed to be in their body, and we always look at these sensitivities and intolerances, especially with all these genetically modified foods that we have now. We're seeing more and more of these food intolerances and food sensitivities than ever before in the 20 years in practice. It's getting to be more and more every year. So nothing is what it used to be anymore. Wheat today is not like wheat was in the 50s. Soybeans today are not soybeans from the 50s. Everything is altered and genetically modified and made to be different. You know, they took a soybean plant, and I think what they did was they took a soybean plant, and on one end of the genetic structure, we think that they spliced on a virus DNA. So you have part virus, part soybean. And then on the other end of the genetic structure, we think that they spliced on a bacteria DNA. So the reason that they did that is so that you can spray more Roundup on it and it won't kill it. Now, we know Roundup causes all kinds of neurological issues and cancer and digestive issues, but they've actually taken a perfectly healthy soybean and turned it into a frankenfood that's part virus, part soybean, part bacteria, so you can spray more Roundup on it and it won't kill it, and that's the kind of stuff we're feeding our children. So that's something that we need to check, is for these food intolerances. Now, another point of our 5 steps to help your child along this same line of intolerances is things that make the body extra sensitive, and that is chemical exposures. And we'll cover that right after this break, and it's going to blow you away when you hear about the side effects of some of these common chemicals that are being used around our house and in our children's food and in some of our cleaning supplies and the problems that they cause. And I think that you'll see that it matches up almost exactly to today's most common health problems and children's problems. And that's no accident. There's definitely a common thread here. So if you want to register your child for our 5 Steps to a Healthy Child screening all this month, it's totally free. You can call 837-7174 and register your child or teen, and we'll sit down and we'll take a look to see if we can help them with whatever health problem they have, no matter how severe or no matter how minor, it doesn't matter. If they're starting to have some sort of a health problem, that's something that we want to look at. Now, obviously, I'm not in the office today. It's Saturday morning, so you can leave your name and number on the machine, and we'll call you back to set up your appointment on Monday. The number's 837-7174, or you can simply text CHILD to 77453, and your number will pop right up on our computer Monday, and we'll give you a call to find out a good time that's convenient for you. It's 837-7174. 7174 or text CHILD to 77453. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. We are discussing children's health today on the show. And before the break, we were discussing how unrecognized food sensitivities can affect children's behavior in a profoundly negative way. And I want you to go on our Facebook page. I'm going to post a video showing some children that are being tested. You will be amazed. It's the Bryant Wellness Institute's Facebook page. I'll post it on our Facebook page, and you can go on there and see. And we can test for 96 different food items to see what may be affecting their body and causing them to have behavioral or concentration issues or other health problems. Now, the next big thing that I wanted to look at to determine why your child may be having health problems is chemical exposure. The average child now eats 14 pounds of chemicals, pesticides, additives, food colorings, and dyes every single year. 14 pounds. Just to give you a visual on that, you remember back when we were kids, the big box of washing powder like the Tide, the big box of Tide with the handle on top? The box was about 2 feet by 3 feet or so. I used to sit on it while my mom did the clothes. That's about 12 pounds. So imagine that if I bring that box full of chemicals over to your house, and let's say you have 3 kids. So I bring you 3 boxes full of chemicals over to your house with a spoon. And I say, I need you to spoon feed this box of chemicals to your child this year. And next year I'm going to bring you another one and another one and another one. You would never do that. Of course not. But it's already happening. So let me just go through a few of these chemicals and explain to you some ways that they can damage your child's health. Now, the first one on the list is phthalates. Phthalates are in plastics. They give plastics flexibility. They're also in soaps, shampoos, makeup, blood storage bags. Just look at everything your child eats that comes out of plastic these days. Phthalates have been proven to cause thyroid and hormone disruption, obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, depression, anxiety, and ADD. Now, the next one is BPA, which is abbreviation for bisphenol A. BPA has been proven to cause hormone and thyroid problems, breast and prostate cancer, ADD, bipolar disorder, OCD, depression and anxiety, diabetes and obesity, and early onset of puberty in girls. Guys, there's so much BPA in our environment that it has literally changed the average age of puberty in our girls. So the average age of puberty when we were young was around 13 years old. It has now gone down to 9 and dropping. The reason is BPA mimics estrogen in the body. There's so much BPA in our kids that it has actually changed the rate which our daughters are going into puberty. It's a terrible thing. So BPA is a big one. It also comes from plastics. And the next one is polybrominated diphenyl ethers. Now, these are your flame retardants. It's on mattresses, carpeting, upholstery, those kind of products. Proven to cause thyroid problems, hormone problems, learning problems, and ADD. And then the last one is perfluorinated chemicals, and these are your stain resistors. They resist grease, water, and stain. These are your Teflon nonstick pans. So in the kitchen, you know how your Teflon pan is chipping? That's letting chemicals in your food called perfluorinated chemicals, and they're not good for you. We also see these in fast food wrappers. The reason your grease from your taco doesn't get through the wrapper and into the bag is because the wrapper can be lined with perfluorinated chemicals. We also see these in microwave popcorn. But these chemicals are proven to cause liver problems, thyroid dysfunction, cancers, emotional problems, and mental disorders. So, guys, I could go on and on about this, but listen, your children are eating 14 pounds of these chemicals every single year. And if you look at the symptoms that I just described with these chemicals, it matches perfectly with the people around you that are sick and have health problems. Thyroid problems, ADD, depression, obesity, diabetes, cancer, anxiety. These chemicals are what's causing a lot of this stuff. So we have something in our practice called Kid Detox, which is part of our 5-step plan. If they have chemical toxicity causing their brain not to function correctly or causing them not to be able to concentrate or causing them some sort of an issue, that has to be gotten out in order for them to be healthier. And they won't fully get better until this has been taken care of. So our Kid Detox program is such a huge health benefit. And there's also some other chemicals that are neuroexcitatory that are used. One example is glutamate. Glutamate is a neuroexcitatory chemical. They put it in our food. It's what it does is it stimulates your nervous system. It's a neuroexcitatory hormone. So they put it in when you taste food, and things like you just feel like it's really good, like you're eating something, you just for some reason you feel like you want to eat more of it. Many times that's because you've been tricked with this neuroexcitatory hormone called glutamate. It's in ketchups and processed foods and sometimes fast foods. Proven to cause brain imbalances and things like hyperactivity. Food dyes have been proven to disrupt the brain and nervous system. So listen, they tested the cord blood of 200 infants at the World Health Organization. Every cord blood they tested, 200 out of 200, the cord blood was loaded with toxins, and some of them banned in other countries, some of them very, very harsh. Some of them even have been shown to cause birth defects. So we're loaded up with toxins before we're ever even born. So in other words, it's unavoidable. So our Kid Detox program is something that every kid ought to go through. Children need to get rid of these toxic chemicals, heavy metals like leads and mercuries, out of their body. Guys, mercury is the second most toxic element on the planet next to plutonium, which is what they use in dirty bombs to kill the most people. So mercury is right behind that. Mercury is put as a preservatives in shots and medications. It's used in dental fillings. It's in apex predator fish like tuna, swordfish, and mackerel. High fructose corn syrup is made with mercury, and it sometimes can be contaminated with mercury. So stop and look at everything your kid eats with high fructose corn syrup in it. Guys, high fructose corn syrup has been a huge detriment to the human race. It's terrible for us. We should avoid it if we can at all costs. Now, when you get all of this junk out of the body and get these brain-altering chemicals out of the brain, it can finally begin to function better. But you know, all this has to be done as one comprehensive program. It's important that you do these things in order, or you can make yourself really sick. You have to know what you're doing with this. You have to take one step at a time and do this in a very exact order under supervision. So our 5 Steps to a Healthy Child program is designed to do just that. It's time that we take a hard, honest look at our children's health in Acadiana. Think back to when we were kids. Nobody had these problems. We've got kids everywhere with weight problems and asthma and ADD and depression and anxiety and ear infections and all of these different disorders. We've got to do better. It's time to put some common sense back in our kids' health. And the bottom line is, though, we really just want to help. We want to try to help your children not have to suffer and develop chronic disease later. So September is Children's Health Month at Bryant Wellness. And if you want to register your child for our 5 Steps to a Healthier Child screening this month, there's no charge whatsoever to bring your kids in to see if we can help them. All you have to do is call my office at 837-7174 and leave your name and number on the machine. That's 837-7174. And when I get back in the office Monday, my staff will give you a call and schedule your appointment and book a time that's convenient for you. We're asking that you come in and sit down for about an hour. Let's talk about these things and work through these issues one by one. And then I'll present you with my thoughts on it, and I'll present you with a strategy where it'll be a lot like a recipe. We're going to do A first, and then B, and then C, and this is why. Now, you can also just simply text CHILD to 77453, and your number will pop right up on her computer, and she can schedule a good time for you Monday when she gets back. You can text CHILD to 77453 or call 837-7174 to book your appointment for our healthy training all month of September. Thank you all for listening to the show. I look so forward to helping your children be healthier. Have a great weekend. Enjoy this beautiful weather.